home for podcasts and original music.
The Sagniv One Radio Network. It's time for another episode of Popcorn and Parachute Pants, a podcast where we discuss the very best of movies of the 1980s. And now, here are your hosts, Mr. Fingaz and Nick Rosario.
Good morning, America. I'm sorry, I'm laughing as we come in. We were setting this up to get the whole thing going, and just all of a sudden the whole thing started recording. It's like, well, I guess we're going on. So welcome to episode 4 of Popcorn and Parachute Pants, a 1980s movie podcast where my illustrious co-host, Mr. Nick Rosario, and I review the best and the weirdest and the most obscure of 1980s movies. We've been on kind of a mainstream road so far, and that does not change at all. But first, before we get into it, Nick, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's it's a beautiful day here in Chicago. The sun is out. It's about 36, so that's always good for being winter months. Not to give too much away, we are recording this in the winter. So it's 36 degrees out and sunny, which is, for Chicago, a beautiful day, my friend.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to say, so it's like spring day folks walking around in shorts and tank tops.
I'll have my short sleeves right and my flip-flops and my shorts. I'm good to go.
My God. I've never been able to understand. Being a guy from Georgia, no. Like, it's got to at least be on the upper side of, after 20 years in the D.C. area, it's got to be on the upper side of the 50s for me to break out.
That's a heat wave for us, 50.
Right.
Walk outside with no shirt on.
Yeah, no, right? No shirt, no shoes, no service. Hey, man, it's 59 degrees out here. Well, yeah, it is hot. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Oh, man. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you will, we're going to fire up the time capsule and travel back to 1985. The hair was high and full of hairspray. Colors and multiple colors, and gel shoes were everywhere. And the movie of the week, Weird Science, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Weird Science. For those of you that are new to the game, and if you haven't seen it yet, by the way, we have to go ahead and throw this out there. Spoiler alert. Weird Science is a 1985 teen comedy directed by the great John Hughes. Basically, we've got two teenage boys who just have no luck with women. They're typical awkward teenagers. They're not old enough to drive yet. They're not cool enough to get invited to parties. They got no girlfriends. And one night they get together and decide that they are going to create the perfect woman. And they happen to be successful. And then all sorts of hilarity ensues behind that.
That is for sure.
So and this is a movie that introduced us to when a woman is considered one of the most beautiful women of the 1980s era, Miss Kelly Lebrock.
For sure.
For those of you that don't remember, those of you that are too young to remember, you might not even know who Kelly Lebrock is, but just trust me when I tell you. Just like you think of any of the most beautiful women of today, Kelly Lebrock was in that category in the 1980s. She married Steven Seagal, who was the hottest action star of the 80s at that time.
I actually think they met somewhere around this time and were married. Yeah, it was really interesting because she came off of a movie where she had no lines. She had starred in The Woman in Red with Gene Wilder just the previous year. And so she didn't really have a lot of acting experience. And actually, she wasn't cast in the movie till a little bit later. My understanding from what I've read was they had another actress kind of in place, but at the last minute, they got Kelly Lebrock, which again, in terms of what this movie is and the fantasy of it, at that time, you couldn't have found a better person to play this Lisa character, I think then Kelly LeBrock. She was the perfect choice. I think most adolescent males would have agreed that if this is the woman you created, she's about as close to perfect as you were going to get.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. And I do remember her face, and I remember the accent,
yeah.
but I didn't remember her being so slim. I guess we've gotten so used to in the 2020s now to women being a little more full figured, so to
Well,
speak.
sure, absolutely, Rubenesque, as it were,
Yeah,
right?
half big, I believe, is one of the words that
No,
comes to mind. But yeah, Rubens. Yes, for those of you that don't know, Rubens is not referred just to a sandwich or a guy
right.
in a tight suit going. "Ha, it also is not it's
Where'd
called
that come from? All right,
Paul Rubens. Pee Wee
I know.
Herman.
Yes, I know. Paul.
Okay, okay. I'm by myself today. I gotta wake
No,
up. No, I'm kidding. I kid. I joke. But Kelly LeBrock, absolutely one of the most beautiful women of the 80s,
yeah,
and where The Woman in Red was the role that introduced her to the world. Weird Science is the role that we talked about last week, the one that breaks you out and the one that puts you on the map. And Weird Science definitely put her on the map.
yeah.
So these guys, I mean, it's a total 80s movie. Nick, I'm going to step back and let you have something to say about this here before I ramble.
Oh no, that's fine. I mean, hey, but well, here's my thing with the movie. Again, you set it up. You got the characters are Gary and Wyatt. They're friends. They're kind of the nerdy guys. 80s movies were big on nerds, guys who weren't popular with the women, didn't run in the social circles of the cool people. So they're Friday night. They're sleeping over at each other's houses, right? These are guys who do this. So one night they get the idea to create a woman. They've got a computer program. They start cutting up magazine parts and inputting lips and legs and all this stuff to create this perfect being, right? See them cutting up the magazines and all that, and then they hook up this little doll to a thing, and the lightning and it's like Dr. Frankenstein, right? You're creating at one point you even see the old Frankenstein where the guy's like, it's alive. So you got the whole thing there. Boom. Now here's the thing. Now you're praying that this works, right? So in the context of the movie, you see these two guys sitting here. There's a crash of lightning. You see this whole thing. There's smoke and everything, and then all of a sudden, appearing in the doorway is Lisa, right? So what is the first thing that these two decide that they want to do with her is they want to take a shower with her, right? And again, not a horrible thing to do if you got a beautiful woman there. But the funny part is, and this is one of the first kind of sight gags I think you really see in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
is she's taking a shower, so she's nude. You don't see that, but that's the illusion that she's nude. They both have their jeans on, and they're in the shower in the corner, standing by themselves, just watching her take a shower, and they're not even undressed. So it's just the movie is full of those sorts of like things, sight gags and funny moments, and so to me, this is one of those absolutely what they call the quintessential teen movie. I mean, it has everything. It's got the bad guys, it's got the other girls that if it as you get into the story, these boys like those girls, but they're dating these popular guys. So how does that happen? But Anthony, what I'd like to ask you, because this is a story that you had talked about. You saw this movie once when it started,
Mm-hmm.
and then hadn't really seen it in 30 something years.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a movie that I have watched consistently throughout my life, just because I'm addicted to teen movies. What was your watching it again after 30 years? What kind of sense did you get? Like, did this bring up any memories for you? Did you have some similar experience? Was this stuff you could relate to? Like, what did that do for you?
Well, I can't ever say that I had a beautiful woman in the shower in my mother and father's house. But
Well, yeah. But yeah, I feel you there. I mean,
yeah, and we didn't have the kind of computer equipment to hack into the government. I mean, dude, this is a movie you had to watch to suspend reality, is because
yeah,
they hack
yeah,
into in order to
yeah,
create this woman, they had to hack into a government database to
yeah.
get all the data they needed. Now, mind you, now you can probably do the same thing with a cell phone, but they gave her the intellect of Einstein, and they gave her the beauty of this person and the lips of
Yeah.
this person, and probably the first quotable line that we got in the entire movie as they're creating her breasts and they're making them really big. And it's like, nah, man, anything more than a handful, and you'll sprain your tongue.
Right. You're risking a sprained tongue. That's right.
Yeah, you're risking a sprained tongue. But for me, yeah, definitely, dude. I've said on many occasion, and God, I wish you'd known you were going to ask me this question. I pulled up a picture of myself in high school.
Oh,
I was Stephen Q. Urkel about 7 or 8 years earlier than the television show. I mean,
okay, I see.
like I didn't understand it when your pants got in a certain point past your ankle bone that you weren't supposed to wear them, and
I see.
I wore a lot of Argyle because that was the thing because of Michael J. Fox and the Argyle and the knit ties, and I did all that stuff, and I tried to be preppy, but I just wound up coming across as just very nerdy. And I
Right.
did not have a real girlfriend until the end of my freshman year in college because I
Oh,
just
wow.
I was completely awkward. I couldn't talk to
Mhm.
girls. I didn't know, if it was somebody I just knew, I could talk to them all day, like a buddy. But like somebody I liked, I could get all tongue tied and then say dumb stuff. Nice hair, hair.
No,
I turned to the caveman. Hair nice, smell good.
yeah.
So I understood that. The only thing I didn't have to deal with was the jock bullies.
Yeah.
Fortunately, everybody was kind of cool, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I could definitely relate. I mean, sitting around in the '80s, looking at Vanessa Williams, Miss America,
sure.
and Janet Jackson, and Kim Fields is Tootie.
Judy.
Oh my god, dude! Well, she wasn't my first celebrity crush, but Tootie was like my first like hardcore crush. Kim Fields, if you're out there, we good now. I'm married, I'm happy, but just so you know, back in 1983, 84, your number one
Exactly.
fan was living in the 912 area code.
Yeah.
So I can understand. I can relate. I mean, dude, think about your celebrity crush. Could you imagine if you could just push a button at 14, 15 years old and your celebrity crush just popped up? Poof.
Dude, I have the most. It's funny you say that. Real quickly, I still have the same celebrity crushes I had back then, because both women are still in the entertainment business. One, Alyssa Milano from
Okay.
Who's the Boss, and Tiffany Amber Thiessen from Saved by the Bell and the 90210. Like, those two still I crush on, and they're both married with children. But hey, just saying, if you ever come across Big Nick and you want to go out one night and just hang, you let me know. We'll work it out.
We're
But yeah,
also putting out an open call to Tiffany Amber Thiessen and Alyssa
man,
Milano.
that's right,
My
man.
man,
Hey,
Nick Rosario. They don't call him Mr. I Want to Smoke for Nothing. So come get at my guy right there.
that's right.
Telling
But
you.
one of the other things about this movie that I found that no, right, hey, I'm with it, man. Trust me. But one of the other things about this movie that I actually like is that again, it does have a little bit of heart because throughout the movie, you see Lisa doesn't just like she tries to teach these boys stuff. She tries to give them their confidence. Like she tries to get them to see that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them and that they just need to be able to trust in themselves and the confidence thing. And when you're a kid you need something like that. You got the older brother who all he does is rag on his he's Wyatt's older brother is home for the weekend as well
Chat.
from the army or wherever he's doing, right? So Bill Paxton, in a very memorable role for him, plays the older brother who's kind of he's a bully. He's always the two kids, he's just picking on him the whole time and that sort of thing. So you have that. So one of the best thing, one of the first things I think that you and I were talking about before that just will absolutely have you laughing as Lisa takes them out after they get the whole shower bit. They go out for the night, get to know each other, whatever. So they end up at a bar. It kind of looks like one of those Chicago blues bars where
Yeah.
a bunch of
That's
guys
exactly
who
what it is.
have been hanging there for like 40 years are still there, drinking the same drink and telling the same stories. So if you picture this, you've got the Gary Wyatt characters with Lisa, and then you've got like 4 or 5 guys who are all played by veteran actors. You will recognize every single one of these guys from all different types of movies. You've got John Kapelos, who was the janitor in The Breakfast Club, and he was also he's a John Hughes guy. Like John would use him because he was a Chicago actor. He would always put him in stuff. Chino Fats Williams is a guy you would recognize. He's got the real girl, hey baby, got a voice. There was another guy that was he was always in the kung fu movies. I don't remember his name. It was a black
Jim,
gentleman.
I want to say Jim
Yeah,
Kelly.
No, it wasn't Jim Kelly, but it was another. It was another guy who appeared in tons of those. Like kung fu throughout the '80s. He was in the
Kung
movies
Fu.
like that. Yeah, so these were just some of the guys. Again, this scene itself, nothing but jokes, nothing but sight gags. Gary tells. Well, as a matter of fact, I'll let you tell it because I think this is something that when we were talking about, you were cracking me up with your impression of how this went. So go ahead and
So
give a little bit of what set it up and what's going on, right?
So Gary, who is played by Anthony Michael Hall, and he's a stereotypical '80s kid. He's a skinny kid, and he's got the floppy hair. I
Blonde
don't
hair,
even know what that floppy hairdo was called back then.
right?
And he's this totally geeky kid, and he puts his voice on, man. When he gets excited, his voice gets real high pitched. And so
Exactly.
they're in this bar drinking. Lisa has provided them with fake IDs,
Right.
which look nothing like them being 20. It's
Right.
just basically pictures of them with these big fake porn statues on.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
And they're sitting around. Imagine two white kids from the suburbs, like the I would say upper middle class suburbs, based on the beautiful
Yeah, they're
houses
like
they live in.
take two kids from Lake Forest, drop them into
Right.
the city.
Right.
Here in Chicago, you Chicagoans, take two kids from Lake Forest, drop them into Chicago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for my Savannah people, take a couple kids from the east side and put them out on Whitmarsh. They're out. Take a couple kids from Whitmarsh Island, take them to a bar out on the east side, down off MLK. So anyway, basically, what's going on is these kids are now in. I won't say the hood, but they're in a bar that has the potential to be the hood, and it's all of these 50 and over black guys is the predominant whatever, and he's drunk. At this point now, Gary's drunk. Right. And he's telling this story about this girl. Now, the original story was he had a crush on a girl named Lisa, and I think he tried to talk to her, and she punched him in the family jewels or something like that.
Need me in the nuts, as he says.
Need me in the nuts. So now he's all drunk. He's full of alcohol and confidence. Man, let me tell you about this story, man, about what happened with me and my girl. Like, all of a sudden, he went from being a nerdy black teenager from the suburbs to this old 50-year-old black guy.
Right, exactly.
Let me tell you the story about this girl, man. And I was trying to tell you, and I was feeling it right. And I was calling, she called me. And I was like, I'm going to call you back. And just going over. And the thing is, the funny thing about it is the guys are all into this story. They're like, for real? You hung up on her, man? Yeah, you hung up on her, man. Yeah, I hung straight up on her. And then when I saw her in person, you know what she did to me? Let me tell you what she did to me. What she do, young Thundercat? Man. And then that's when Lisa jumps in and she's like, she need him in the family jewels. She need you in the jewels. She need me in the jewels, man. Like that's all.
It's a tremendous. You can't even take it, right?
I'm sorry. That part of the movie was so hilarious to me.
Yeah, it really is though. But see, those are the kind of scenes in these kinds of movies that actually make them, because people, what do you go to a movie for? You want to be entertained, right? You want to laugh, you want to cry, you want to do all that. Well, that's what these teen comedies did. Like, and that's the whole point of this. Like, you're taking something that's totally absurd, them inventing this woman, and then she takes them out into situations in the world that they would normally not be in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's the fun part of this whole thing. That's why that scene is absolutely great because, again, you're thinking these kids would never go to a blues bar, 2 through 3 in the morning. They've all drunk. Gary's drunk. Ian's dancing with some big black woman. They're dancing in the thing. It's hilarious. It's just one of those things. You absolutely just that's the kind of thing that makes these movies work and it makes them fun and lighthearted.
Yeah, and then later on, that particular experience just helps them to. It was not just that one experience, but all of the experiences that she puts them into the scenarios.
Yeah,
you wind up seeing it all tie together in the end.
Yes.
And now, as you and I are talking about it, because again, folks, I saw it one time back when it first came out, just like you, when it came out for home video. I saw it at home on home video back in the 85, I guess 86 would have been when it came out on home video.
Yeah.
Had not seen it again until last night. And I was watching it going, wow. But now as you and I are talking it out, it makes sense. It's like, okay, that's why she made me do that. That's why she made me go talk to these guys. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Life experience, man. She was just trying to give them some life experience and to build up their confidence and let them know that they matter just as much as these other fools who we're going to talk about in a minute. And you know what I mean? And it's because, again, now we're getting to the point of the film where you meet the girls that Gary and Wyatt actually like.
Mhm.
There's these two girls at school named Deb and Hilly, who they have an attraction for, but of course they already have boyfriends because they're more popular girls. And here's where we enter your boy, the future Iron Man. This Robert Downey Jr. appears in this movie in a small role as one of he calls him the scene stealer because he's got a few funny things to do in this movie. But yeah, Robert Downey Jr. And an actor named Robert Russler, who was another popular '80s teen actor. They play the guys, the girlfriend or the boyfriends of these two girls that Gary and Wyatt, uh, kind of like they have a little crush on. So Lisa goes about trying to figure out a way to get Gary and Wyatt to get up the nerve to ask, to talk to these girls. And of course, hilarity ensues because it backfires a little bit. There's a scene in a mall where obviously these two guys know that these two are digging on their girlfriends. So they pretend to literally take like what was it, Slurpees and just pour them on
Yes.
top of them in the mall. Of course, another embarrassing scene for the two nerd guys. So they
Mhm.
get Slurpees put on them in the middle of the mall. Um, but after that, you find out as they're leaving, Lisa picks them up in the car. So they get into the car with this beautiful woman, and these
Wait,
two
wait.
idiots.
Not just any car.
But that's any car. Well, what kind of car was it, sir?
I believe it was a Porsche.
No, I believe you're right. Now, see, that's the one. That the reason I deferred to you is because you just watched it last night. I hadn't seen the movie in a little bit. And I didn't remember exactly what car it was, but Porsche sounds right
Yeah.
because Lisa would just everything would appear with her. Like this lady had magic. It was just like things would appear or things would pop up, and But they realized that they're wondering why this beautiful woman is in a car with these two nerdy dudes. And the
Mhm.
best part about it is if you watch really closely, they're looking into the window, and Anthony Michael Hall's in the front, and he starts to kind of smooch on Lisa a little bit. And these two are like, oh, what are these guys doing with. So now you've got it sets up more of the third act story
Mhm.
where these guys now want to talk to these guys about switching their girlfriends for Lisa, which again isn't right. Isn't That's kind of an a-hole move, right? Like you want to dump your girlfriends just so you can try to get with the hot, the
Hey,
hot
yo,
older lady.
hey, yo, Pete, this. I'll trade you my Barry Bonds rookie card,
Right,
a Barry
exactly.
Bonds rookie card, and a Mark McGuire card from the year they had the home run derby for that Hank Aaron card, homie.
Right,
Like that's
exactly.
basically what it was.
Right. It's like here, I want to upgrade, so let me see this. Here's what I know you want this. I'm gonna get you this. But yeah, so I think that the reason why that's important is again, it just sets up more, and the great part about this is because you kind of see actually some of what the future Robert Downey Jr. like just kind of his creative brilliance and genius. Because again, it's a smaller part, but he does steal the scenes that he's in because he's just that good of an actor. And this is him starting out, but I mean, really, you get kind of a good sense of that this kid really could be something. And sure enough, he turns out to be one of the more finer actors working these days in movies.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And you almost get the feeling that because you hear a lot about him in the Marvel movies and where a lot of his scenes were improvised.
yeah,
You kind of get the feeling that he just kind of was flying off the cuff. They just kind of said, "Here's the scenario and go."
yeah,
Like there's this one scene where they did something. He and Ian and Max, who are the two characters played by Robert
right,
Downey and Robert Russler, have done
yeah,
something to tick off their girlfriends, and the girls kind of walk off to themselves to have a
yeah,
conference.
yeah,
And you see Robert Downey Jr. and you see Ian and Max just do this little choreographed dance behind them in the.
yeah, yeah. They're just trying to,
And then when the girls turn around, they're like, "We're sorry, we're
yeah,
sorry."
right.
And it's like when you look at it, it looks like that was not planned to be part of the whole movie.
It probably wasn't. It probably was something they came up with right during again when you met. It's one of those things, and that's why too. Like even with Gary and Wyatt, the guy who played Wyatt is a guy named Ian Mitchell Smith, who
Mhm.
who actually kind of left acting after a few years. He did another couple films, after this one, but then actually got out of the business. Obviously Anthony Michael Hall went on and did some stuff. Kelly LeBrock went on and did some stuff. Uh, but yeah, you talk about the just the little things in this movie that make it, heartwarming and heartfelt, along with all the kind of, like you said, the absurdity of what's happening.
Mhm.
Because again, this lady has the power. Lisa has the power to do anything. She manipulates all the situations. Like at one point during a party, there's this big party towards the end. It gets to the thing where everybody's invited. They wanted to invite a few people over. And Lisa tells, they gets the word out to everybody that there's a big party. So Gary's parents' house is now, Wyatt's parents' house is now turned into this huge party. And his grandparents show up. And there's a scene where Lisa confronts the grandparents because they're trying to tell everybody to get out of their daughter's house. Well, she ends up freezing them and putting them in a closet where they're just catatonic.
Right.
So the guy opens the door. He's like, "Hi, Grammy. Hi, Grandpa." He's like, and he freaks out realizing that his grandparents are catatonic in a closet. And Lisa's like, "What? What did I do?" Almost like, "Oh, my bad. I didn't know that." And that's the kind of thing, like those absurdities, but it makes the movie. Like at one point, which is probably one of my favorite scenes. And again, we are a PG show, but we're going to get into a little bit of. I think you know where I'm going with this, Mister Fingers. But the reason why is for the purposes of the comedy. So Gary is sitting with Lisa in his parents' house because they're trying to convince her to let her take Gary out for the night. And the father's like, you don't look right. You don't look like you go to high school. And she's like, no, I don't go to high school. He's like, you don't go to Gary's school. No, I don't go to Gary's school. Blah, blah, blah. And then she starts kind of trying to make Gary a sympathetic character and try to tell the parents that, the only pleasure that your son ever gets is servicing himself in the bathroom with the water on. So the mom starts crying, getting hysterical.
You said you were combing your hair.
Right. Yeah. And Gary's trying to plead with his mom that that's not what he's doing in the bathroom. And the dad decides that finally had enough of it. And he gets up, he's like, I don't know who you are, but you better get out of my house. So then she says, in her very Kelly LeBrock accent, don't threaten me, Al. I'll kick your ass. So now Gary's freaking out. The mom's hysterical. And she just threatened Gary's dad. So she pulls, again, the absurdity of it, she pulls out a gun and says, Gary's going to be, and yeah, it looks like a big Clint Eastwood 357 Magnum gun that she pulls out. And then Gary's like, great, my parents are going to kill me. They're never going to, blah, blah, blah. It's a water gun. She ends up squirting Gary with it in the front seat. And she's like, don't worry, your parents won't remember a thing. And so for the rest of the movie, every time every time they flash back to the parents, you see the mom trying to convince the dad.
Gary was acting kind of weird. Who's this Gary you're talking about?
Right.
Like he just totally wiped his memory of his son.
Which is again just subtleties in this movie that make it hilarious, because Lisa is the one controlling all of this. You know what I'm saying? Like she literally becomes like the puppet master and manipulates all these scenarios for these guys. Again, all to just build them up and give them the confidence that they need. So that's why, again, is it an absurd movie? Absolutely. But it's absolutely hilarious at the same time. And again, for my money, I want to be in it. It's 94 minutes, so it's only an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So I implore anyone who's never seen the movie, if you happen to have missed it, 94 minutes of your life, I'm sure you've done worse things with an hour and a half. Find Weird Science on one of your streaming services, wherever.
Like combing your hair.
Exactly. Well, yeah. You know what? Never mind. I was gonna say something.
Don't you do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it, baby. She needs you in the family jewels. In the family jewels, man.
That's right. That's right, man. No, yeah. So, but yeah, no. This movie is loaded with that kind of stuff. Impressions. The whole I could be here for hours talking about this film. But yeah, so again, now you're going into kind of the third act. You've got the big party. You've got up to the point, and this is an important part too, because if you're a fan of film and you study this kind of stuff, there's always the part where obviously it turns, and now Lisa is upset with the boys because what they try to do in their ultimate of trying to get Deb and Hilly, the two other girls, they agree to make a girl for Ian and Max. So they have the whole ceremony over again where they, input the stuff and, they're asking them, what do you want? What are your specifications? Obviously they wanted a larger chest for the model, as they said, blah, blah. So then you go in and you have the whole thing again and, sparks fly, blah, blah, blah. And again, you see a figure in the doorway. So these boys figure they have again created another perfect woman. And it just turns out to be Lisa standing in the doorway. And she proceeds to tell them, hey, you guys weren't satisfied with, what you had. You wanted blah, 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 blah. You wanted this, you wanted that. And she's like, and in your ultimate thing, you forgot to do one thing. And of course, being dumbfounded, he's like, we forgot to hook up the
We
doll.
forgot to hook up the doll.
And you can just see the disappointment on her face. And she's like, yes, you forgot to hook up the doll. And she just leaves. So again, you always have, it's like the parent being upset with the child for not getting the lesson or whatever that they're trying to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
And so these two kids now are like, well, what did we do? We were just trying to, we're trying to facilitate what you wanted us to facilitate all along, was have a chance with these two girls our age, girls who
Right.
are, that sort of thing. So there's a
Which they
lot of
wound
lessons.
up, yeah,
Yes. Oh yeah.
a lot of
Of
lessons,
course.
to be learned in this movie,
But
which
there's
they
also
wound up doing,
transitions. Yeah.
in the climax of the movie. So of course, every teen movie has got to have some kind of climax, and that's when the mutant bike gang shows up.
Because again, what else? How else would you end this movie with a
Right.
mutant bike gang?
Right, a mutant bike gang just shows up out of nowhere at a party. At a party in the burbs, like a gated
Right.
community. This
Oh
mutant
yeah,
gang
for
just
sure.
bike. Yeah, I can see. Could you see the guy? I wish with the scene that they left out was the guy, the security guy that's getting paid like $4.58 an hour because it's 1985. That's sitting at the
Exactly.
gate, and when this gang of mutant bikers just rolls up out of nowhere, just rolls up out of nowhere.
Which is in response to what they did.
Mhm,
Because she didn't do that until after she found out they tried to recreate the doll again. Then she
right,
sent in the biker gang to
right,
kind of break up the party and cause them to react to that. Like this
right,
is, like what are you gonna do
and
type scenario.
two excellent performances by two veteran actors, Vernon Wells as the Lord General, the leader of the
Yes.
mutant bike gang, and a character actor you all may not know by name, but you definitely know him by face. We see him, Michael Berryman,
Yeah.
who
Hills Have Eyes franchise, if that's
yeah,
one of
the
them.
Hills Have Eyes franchise. That's the
Yeah.
one I was going to point you right to. Thank you, sir. And they, they have this pivotal moment where
Yeah.
Gary and Wyatt have to go. Do we? Because the girls are now put in danger. Do we save the girls?
They grab the two girls, obviously. So
Yeah,
now Gary and Wyatt have to decide: are we going to kind of sack up here and protect the women we really like, or are we just going to let these biker guys do whatever the hell they want?
right.
So they have their come to Jesus moment, as it were.
Yep.
And
And then Gary has this big. He sacks up in big fashion when he pulls out a 357. Threatens the mutant biker, says, if you guys don't leave, I'm going to kill you, or you can let the girls go and we got no problem, or otherwise I'm going to kill you. Actually, I wonder if the folks from Taken had a moment, if they kind of drew from that, because the whole speech again, say, what you're going to do is you're going to leave. I don't have much, but what I do have is this gun. If you let the girls go, no harm, no foul.
Right, no foul.
But if you don't, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill all of you. Like, you know what I mean? But that basically was the speech he gave, and then everybody leaves, and it's like, oh man, that's where did you get the gun from? I don't worry, it's a squirt gun.
Right.
Boom, and he shoots the chandelier off, so the gun comes back as a prop again
Yes.
in the movie. And
But he fires a shot this time, yes.
Yeah. And they win the hearts of the girls, and they wind up spending the evening in the company of the girls. Now here's the thing that I wanna ask you. I'm gonna go back on something for a second.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed in every teen comedy, like angsty teen comedy with the geeky kids, I mean, we've seen it in just about every '80s movie with that's some kind of teen angst. Goonies will probably be doing that one again sometime soon. That's another '80s favorite. But there's always this moment where the main characters wind up going through some sort of embarrassment, right?
Oh, sure.
And for some reason, it doesn't matter where they are. There's always a ready-made crowd to laugh at them.
Of course.
This is me, and this is how my brain works. This movie I hadn't seen in 30-something years. They're in the mall. People are just walking along, minding their own business.
Right.
Nobody's paying them any attention. The second they get splashed with Slurpee,
Everybody
all
laughs.
of a sudden, everybody in the mall stops and laughs. Like everybody.
Mm-hmm. That's how.
Like, where do we get these people from? Who are you people? Why are you so cruel? They just wanted to sit in the mall and look cool. And man, throwback. I had a throwback too. A throwback moment. Wicks and Sticks. I saw a store called Wicks and Sticks. I haven't seen one of those in 30
Wicks and
some odd
Sticks.
years.
Okay, what is Wicks and Sticks?
It's a candle. It's like the precursor to the places that sell candles, but it's like Wicks and Sticks. And I was like, get the heck out of here. Like if I had seen a Chess King and I don't know, what were some of the other stores back in the 80s? But yeah, if I had seen a Chess King next to the Wicks and Sticks, I'd have been done. And maybe a Montgomery Ward and a Service Merchandise.
Yeah, Montgomery Ward.
Yeah,
good old Service Merchandise. We had those here. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I worked in a Service Merchandise.
Yeah.
Not to get too far off track, right?
Yeah, not to get off the beaten path, y'all, but Service Merchandise was kind of like, imagine a department store, but what you did was you went in, and if you saw what you want, and you wrote the catalog number down, and you paid for it, and then you went to another part of the store to pick it up. You didn't just go pick stuff up and go to the cash register and pay for it. It was absolutely crazy, but they had the most bomb catalog, the toys and the musical equipment. But anyway, to bring this thing back around, like you said earlier, this movie has everything. You have the angsty main teenage character. You've got the love interest, in this case, two of them in both coins. You have the pivotal character that's kind of like the sensei. You have the pivotal character that's kind of like the sensei. You have the villain. You have the or more than one villain in this particular case.
Right.
You have the forces outside of it. They're like, I don't understand why you're doing this and why you just don't stop and go to medical school. You always like medicine, something like that. Like this movie is the total, it's totally formulaic, and it completely works.
Right, and that's the thing. And again, you can say it's formulaic, and it is. But why does Hollywood keep making those movies? Because we keep watching them. Because as much as we protest, formula works a lot. Not always, but most times it does. Because that's what you want to see. Like,
not only that, how many of you cannot say that you don't identify with the broken-hearted girl coming off of a bad relationship, the guy that wants to ask the girl out and they've known each other for 30 years, but they've been best friends, the geeky kid that's been picked on, the person over here that wants to pursue whatever dream it is that they want to pursue, and everybody around them's telling them they're wasting their time, but they're really, really good at it. So
exactly.
For all of the challenges that life, for all of the changes in life and technology that life has brought us over, we just say the last century, because now I've got a half century under my belt. So, I haven't studied history back before that. So you think of all the advances in life and technology that we've had in the last century, life still remains the same. Still, to this day, life scenarios don't change.
Right.
Maybe the demographic and the zip code you live in and the technology you use while you're going through it does, but the life scenarios still remain almost 100% of the same, 100% of the time.
So true, though. That really is. That's a great point. You know what I mean? It's absurd, but this is life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you have these absurd situations, of course. Like, I don't think a biker gang is going to break through my door just so I can build my confidence. That's just one of those things where, Hollywood will do that. But, also, like you said, we were talking earlier, like this movie gave us, again, some people who were on the rise in their career. Bill Paxton plays the older brother, Chet, who we mentioned earlier, who at one point, Lisa actually turns into this gruesome looking creature just so he'll stay out of the way. Because again,
Yeah.
she's able to do things like that.
What was he? He was like part gremlin, part toad,
Jabba the Hutt,
part
right? Like
Jabba the Hutt.
yeah, I don't know what you would call him, but it was just he's catching flies, and I was like, it was just funny because at the end they have a scene too where he starts apologizing because Lisa's like, you're gonna start treating your brother better. He's like, I'm sorry, I just was, trying to have some fun, like, so,
Right.
so she turns him back into a human, obviously right before the parents get home, and that's
Yes.
the other thing too. During this party scene, they absolutely trashed the house, right? So
Hmm.
like you see that like they throw the piano out of the house, like this huge mess. But the parents obviously are coming home, so you got to get the house clean. And so Lisa, again, with her magic, is able to put the house back together like nothing ever happened, nothing was ever touched, nothing was ever out of place.
And
Again, the
I
movie
mean, just in the nick of time, like the last piece of furniture slid into place as the parents were coming in, like
opened the door right.
open the door.
Uh, Which
So
again is a great scene too, because you just see everything in reverse. The piano comes back through the chimney, everything because like I said, slides back and everything.
that must have been a hella chimney because that was a baby
It was a
grand
grand
piano.
piano, I know.
Like at one point, and this is when they're trying to recreate the things for Ian and Max, okay?
Uh,
And everything just starts sucking out the house through the chimney,
yeah.
to include the girl playing the piano and her
That
clothes.
was funny because she's hanging on like for dear life, and you see, all of a sudden she comes flying out of the thing and lands in like a ravine or something. Like I don't know,
Right.
like all of a sudden there's a body of water there that she lands in. So you're like, what
Right. And like the chimney is so indiscriminate, like nothing just goes straight up out of the chimney and comes back down through the roof. It all just shoots all over the place. Like the
uh,
piano winds up destroying the gazebo in the backyard, but
right,
the girl
exactly.
winds up 150 yards away. And
Yeah, yeah,
so
no,
it's like yo, and I almost asked the question what happened to the people, but the only person that got sucked out of the chimney was that girl.
was that
And
girl on the
so
piano, right? Yeah, the
right,
girl on the
so
piano.
I was like, dang, didn't people get sucked out? So why didn't they wind up back in the house? But I guess they all left.
And there is
So
kind of a small callback because a couple of guys from the blues bar are at the party, like end up back at the party. Remember the
oh
one
yeah,
guy?
the one that fainted when the mutant guy was there, when the
Yeah, and
mutant biker showed
he's
up.
playing with the remote control. The guy's in the TV, and he's playing with it. Like that's just like I said. There's so much stuff in this movie that you probably have to watch it 2 or 3 times just to catch everything. Because there's sight gags, like I said. There's jokes. There's everything. It's just one of those. Again, spend the 94 minutes. You'll have a good laugh or two. You'll see some old. Again, you'll see people in their prime. Anthony Michael Hall, I
Yeah,
think, literally was just off Saturday Night Live. The one year he did it Saturday Night Live when they did this movie. Him and Robert Downey did Saturday Night Live for that one year.
yeah,
I think it was the 85, 86 season. So, they were fresh doing that. And then, again, like I said, Ian Mitchell Smith did a few more movies before he bowed out. Kelly LeBrock actually, like you said, married Seagal and started being in his movies playing his wife. Like she was
mhm,
in a couple, of them outside of that woman in red part. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
it just
Bill Paxton, Aliens, and of course one of my top 10 favorite films, Tombstone.
yeah,
Uh,
obviously he played one of the
the Earp
the
brothers.
Herb brothers, yeah, with Sam Elliott and Kurt Russell. Great film. It's not an '80s film, otherwise that would probably be on our list.
Oh,
So
dude,
maybe at some
all
point down
day.
the line, right? Maybe some point down the line we'll jump to the '90s. But
We'll,
for now,
we'll
we're staying in the '80s.
Yeah, we'll probably have to do like a 4 or 5 episode set every so often where we go a decade back and a decade
Right.
ahead, which I'm all for because there were some bomb movies in the 70s and the
Oh, for
90s as
sure. Oh
well.
no, the '70s. As a matter of fact, like you mentioned the '70s real quickly. I think that's really what set a lot of this stuff up. Like the '70s, people started to come up with new ideas for movies, I think,
Hmm.
in terms of how they shot them and how they looked and the storylines themselves. And we as a people started to progress a little bit more where we could handle maybe a little bit more
Hmm.
in that sense. So we started to, make different movies for different things. And like I said, the teen movie was a huge '80s staple. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, and because that
70s,
was
'70s
the
you had a couple, but '80s, that was the teen movie explosion.
yeah, that was the one of the reasons why the teen. I was going to just say that there wasn't the reason that the teen movies were such a big deal because prior to that, you really didn't have a lot of those things that appealed to teenagers. I mean, the biggest equivalent we had of teen movies in the 70s was maybe in the mid to late 70s when they started doing the slasher films where all the teenagers went off and got killed. And I think that was a subliminal message from Hollywood, because the old guard was still in Hollywood, that, hey, kids, if you sneak off and have sex while your parents aren't watching, you'll die.
You'll get killed by a guy in the woods. No.
Yeah. So why can't we just get behind the running car? I love that commercial still kills
me. It is funny. Give it over at the chainsaws. But like, you had Grease, Saturday Night Fever. Technically, they were like just out of high school. Like, but that was, those are gritty. Those are, Grease, you have 30-year-olds playing teenagers. Nobody bought that. No, it's a great movie, but nobody bought that. So I mean, these were actual teenagers playing in teen movies, and some of that. So it was really just nice to see. And again, that paved the way for the fellow 90s with Clueless and all that stuff. This is what paved the way for that stuff.
Oh man, yeah. So by the time the 90s rolled along, the teen movies were really in full force. So
yeah, absolutely.
But kudos to John Hughes for just figuring out a way to take it and kind of put a stamp on it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like there's something about I'd have to go back and look at his resume. I'm going to be honest with you. For a guy that's reviewing 80s movies, there are a lot of them I haven't seen in a while, so I'd have to go back and see which ones he directed: Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, that kind of thing. But to go back on that, there's a stamp that he puts on them when you see it. You know it's him. It's Ferris just like Ferris Bueller, exactly. Like all of the way that these movies are put together, which we will be reviewing at some point, ladies and gentlemen. Like that's probably one of his most famous films, and it will probably has been reviewed 100 times. We're gonna do it too.
Of course. But yeah, you look at think about it. I wanted to pull it up because of this reason, just to show you like how much he's influenced the culture at that time. So the first thing that he did, he wrote and produced National Lampoon's Class Reunion. Mm-hmm. Then he did Mr. Mom, he wrote.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah. National Lampoon's Vacation, he wrote. 16 Candles, he wrote and directed. Breakfast Club, wrote and directed. European Vacation, he wrote. Weird Science, wrote and directed. Pretty in Pink, he wrote and was the executive producer. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he did all three. Wrote, produced, and directed. Some Kind of Wonderful, which I mentioned earlier. Leah Thompson, Mary Stuart Masterson, Eric Stoltz. He wrote and produced that one. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I mean, the list is on and on, my friend.
Uncle Buck. Here's Uncle Buck. My two on this list. Uncle Buck and Home Alone. Because you want to talk about, because even then he reshaped maybe we have to do just a show about him, but we're gonna come back to Weird Science in a second, but maybe we need to do a show about him, because he basically just shaped a genre of film for the better part of a decade.
Without a doubt, my friend. Like, without a doubt.
Uncle Buck.
Uncle Buck was great.
Uncle Buck, again, an adult type figure that comes in the lives of angsty children and helps them guide their way through life. And then, of course, the cherry on top, Home Alone.
Well,
like Home Alone entirely just changed the whole genre of Christmas films.
It did. But see, here's why I appreciate what John Hughes did. And as a bigger man myself, I've always been a chubby boy, whether I was 14, 15, 26, 36. Mm-hmm. Now I'm 49. I'm still a chubby boy. He took a guy named John Candy and made him a leading man.
Oh, God, yeah.
And for a guy like me to see a guy like that be a leading man was a big thing. He has a 1991 film that is one of my favorites. It's called Only the Lonely. It was filmed here in Chicago, starring John Candy as the lead. Real quick, he lives with his mother. He's a guy who's never been married, and he meets Ally Sheedy, who's the shy daughter of a mortician, and starts to fall for her, and the story goes and all that sort of thing. All this, but to make a big guy like that the leading man, and to show that and to showcase that, again, with Uncle Buck, he was the lead. Only the Lonely, John Candy's the lead. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he was the lead. So John Hughes was not afraid also to go against what normal, at that point, you had leading man, you were some skinny, hot dude that made the women go crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like he's Dory Patty's on the stage, that kind of stuff, Barry White type stuff, right? This guy's created 30 paintings on the stage. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so to have a big guy like John Candy as the lead for me was like, oh man, this is great. And so I always thought that John Hughes was one of those guys. He just wanted to tell stories, and he told true stories. He told stories that people could relate to, and he just told stories that made you laugh, cry, and enjoy. So that's why I've always been a big John Hughes fan. And again, the '80s was like his, and even into the early '90s was just like hit after hit. I mean, I just read you all the movies he was a part of, and all of those are great. Great films that are probably watched 100 times over by everybody.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it just shows you the genius of him and how well he worked at his craft. It was very good.
Oh God, yeah. And John Candy, as a result, John Candy wound up being and when he passed away, was one of the most beloved.
Oh yeah,
film actors of his time, and he was a guy because I think I remember John Candy. Wasn't John Candy on Sctv on Second City?
He was on Sctv, yes, with Dan Aykroyd and yes,
Dan Aykroyd, Eugene Levy, yeah. So all of these guys, listen, all of those guys, you want to know where they came from. Like Saturday Night Live was the big thing because everybody knows the story behind Bill Murray, John Belushi, Eddie Murphy,
Radner,
everybody knows about Saturday Night Live.
Don't forget the Canadians.
But you really got to remember, you really got to dig deep with SCTV, Second City Television. That's where we got the Martin Shorts and the Eugene Levy's and the John Candy.
Christopher Guest, Martin Short, Dan Aykroyd, Catherine O'Hara, John Candy, Rick Moranis, Dave Thomas. These guys are all from Canada. Yes, SCTV. Yeah.
Some of the biggest stars, film and television stars of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s came from Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Blame Canada.
There
we won't get it because that's a movie that we could probably only be able to review for 5 minutes because there's nothing else. Yeah. You remember that one scene, that one song they sang that they said they couldn't sing, and anyway,
exactly.
But we're here talking weird science today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
So and again, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize. Mr. Fingaz and I get together, and we just start talking. And then somehow we get off on a tangent on something else, but we mean no harm. We are simply here for your entertainment and for your enjoyment. So please,
absolutely.
Come along on this ride with us. We generally don't take too long. We usually get back to the topic at hand. We don't go too far off. But please indulge us as this is fun for us too, to just sit here and talk about these things that we truly love. So we hope that you are enjoying so far what we're doing as for one. And that, again, we're just here to entertain and give you a little something else to do, when you're riding in your car or on your way to work or something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
absolutely. And you can, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube or Facebook, hi, how are you doing? Please feel free, if you're enjoying this, to give us a like and hit the subscribe button. Smash them both really hard. And then before you do that, hit the share button. Let your friends know, hey, this is a really good podcast, and I think you should check it out. I enjoy it, and I think you will too. And we would greatly appreciate it. We actually, the funny part is that you and I on our own do better than when we have supervision. As far as wandering off the reservation.
Exactly. Yeah, something like that. They put us together and then they went, oh no.
Yeah.
Who did that? Well, that's what happens when you get two men who are in the same age bracket, have similar interests in terms of, movies, music, television, the arts in general. Like that's what happens. This is two old guys talking. How about that?
Oh yeah. Like I could see us sitting in that same bar with those same fellas from Weird Science. It's like, get the hell out of here, man. Get out of here. Ain't no way Will Smith was a better rapper than Eric B. and Rakim. It's like, man, it was LL Cool J. LL Cool J, man. LL Cool J. I need him in the Family Jewels. The Family Jewels. The Family Jewels. That's
I was thinking more of the two old men in the Muppet Show, Statler and Waldorf, making comments and everybody else is there.
Would you say it was time to go? No, I said I hate the show.
Exactly, right. Exactly. That's Statler and Waldorf. That's us.
Oh man, like you got to be a certain age bracket to know who those two are.
Right.
Any of you of the sound of our voice right now that got that culture,
Reference, right.
that culture reference. If you haven't scheduled your colonoscopy, please do so. And by
That's
the way,
right.
the Color Guard commercials on TV are for you. Oh man, I think that
I think
wraps
that
up.
pretty much does Weird Science, right? I think we got through
Yeah,
that one.
that wraps that up in the bow. And I got to be honest with you, when I watched it last night, I was like, this is really weird. Okay, I see the John Hughes thing, but it's real. But now that I've sat down and discussed it with someone,
Yeah.
and the things are coming back to it, so it's starting to. And you know what? I'm gonna upgrade this. I think there's something that we need. I think there's a segment we need to start doing going forward. As we need to kind of just give it a grade. We kind of grade the movies, not like Siskel and Ebert would just give it a grade. And I originally was going to give this one about a C-, but now that you and I have discussed it, I'm going to give it a strong B+.
Okay, I would give it a strong B. I'd say definitely. Again, it has its absurdities. We know that it has its all that stuff, but that's what makes this movie great. You know what I'm saying? It's people go, oh, but there's some plot holes. There's supposed to be. It's a teen comedy. Everything, that's the thing too. Like he said in the beginning, you do have to suspend your disbelief for this film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's so many absurd things that happen, but that's the whole point, is that the character is controlling that. Lisa is the one who is putting these guys in these absurd, situations for a reason. So it's part of the story. So just enjoy it. And
yeah. And not only that, what teenager do you know that's able to have a linear chain of thought at any point in time? So the way that the plot bounces around kind of echoes the thought chain of most teenagers in the 80s. Because I think the 80s is really the time when we really started the beginning of what I call our distractions. Because there were a lot more handheld devices. There was the handheld games and the home video gaming consoles and Walkmans and boom boxes and VCRs and things like that. Like we were starting to CD players. We were starting to get more things in our life that, so teenagers, you get, at 60 years old, your train of thought is pretty linear. I got up this morning. I had my coffee. Was I able to do my business? Was it XYZ? Do I need to get a color guard? Should I call my doctor? Okay, everything's good. I'm going to go get my newspaper. I'm going to eat my eggs and toast. I'm going to go to the same place I go every day for breakfast, Monday through Friday, blah, blah, blah. At 17, it's like, it's all over the place. It's just like a giant, it's like a bunch of spiders in a web.
Wherever the day takes you is where you go.
Right. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we do thank you for joining us today for episode 4 of Popcorn and Parachute Pants, where we discussed Weird Science, directed by the late, great John Hughes. So we thank you for joining us today. Make sure you stay tuned. We will be back next week with another episode, with episode 5 of Popcorn and Parachute Pants. So on behalf of myself, Mr. Fingaz, and my illustrious and very well knowledgeable co-host, Mr. Nicholas Rosario, we do bid you. Are you fogging?
I don't know what I'm doing. Right? I'm just framing. Yes, thank you very much for watching.
That's gonna go real well on the podcast to those of you listening. But if you can catch the video, we're right here on YouTube. You got to see it. We appreciate y'all. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Be sure to like and subscribe for content and more
On your new home for podcasts and independent music.
on the Zagniv One Radio Network.